Before you host your first virtual event, you are going to want to conduct a practice run. You might call it a sound check. I call it a tech check. Let's talk about what you want to cover in this tech check to make sure that your virtual event goes flawlessly. Now, before we get started, I want to let you know that I have a free virtual event checklist that you can download. There is a link in the description of this video, and that'll cover everything you need to know in order to have a fantastic virtual event. But today, we're going to focus on the tech check. So let's take a look at this. In order to do this, I would set up a tech check a couple of days before your virtual event. Make sure that you invite any guests or panelists that are going to be speaking at the event. And you're going to want to go into your event platform and probably duplicate your existing event to make a practice run, unless your platform allows you to actually enter the event early so that everybody can test it out. Now, the reason you want to host your tech check a couple of days ahead of your actual virtual event is so that if anybody needs any additional equipment, they have time to purchase that and test it out before the big day. Have them bring to the tech check when they log in the actual computer that they're going to be using, the actual microphone, and the actual camera that they are going to be using for the event. Ideally, you're also going to have them seated in the actual place where they will be when the event happens. You're trying to recreate all the conditions that you're going to have during the actual virtual event. Now, let's talk about the things that you're going to check in this tech check. And you're going to check them both for yourself as the host and for each of your guests. And we're going to start with internet connectivity. You want to make sure that your guests have a fast enough internet speed that there are no problems, no lag, no delays, no stuttering when they're actually in the virtual event. On your virtual event platform's website, you should look up the required upload and download speeds to participate in a virtual event. You can then ask each of your guests to go to speedtest.net to test their internet speed to make sure that they meet those requirements. It is always a good idea to have a wired connection instead of a Wi-Fi connection when you are participating in a virtual event. This will ensure that there are no problems. It's a good idea to ask your guests whether they will be dialing in from their home or from their office. If they are dialing in from their home, they will want to make sure that nobody else in the house is doing anything that consumes a lot of extra bandwidth. You don't want somebody in the living room who's watching Lord of the Rings in 8K while they're on the virtual event. Also, you want to ask them to close any other applications that may be using a lot of internet bandwidth. You don't want them to have 60 browser tabs open, for example, while they're in the virtual event. And if they're using any other applications on a regular basis, such as Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or Zoom, you're going to want to have them close those while they're in the virtual event to make sure that there are no problems. Once you're sure that their internet speeds are up to par, now it's time to talk about audio quality. And audio quality matters a lot in virtual events. I would argue that it's actually more important than even video quality. You want the people to sound good. Ideally, they're going to be using an external microphone, something that is not built into their computer, because those built-in microphones tend to pick up a lot of reverberation from the room, a lot of echo, and a lot of extra noise. So you would prefer that they have an external microphone. And I'll actually include links in the video description below to some inexpensive microphones that they can pick up that'll make a real difference in the audio quality. I recommend either asking your guests to buy these microphones or purchase them for them to have an ideal virtual event. Now, if you're going to be hosting virtual events on a regular basis, you're going to want to use an external microphone too. Let's talk about one of the issues I sometimes see when people are using an external microphone, which is that that input device is not actually being used by the computer or the virtual event platform for sound input. You're going to want to check two places to make sure that this is working. One, check your computer to make sure that it is actually using the microphone as its sound input device. And two, check the virtual event platform and to make sure that it is using the microphone as the sound input device as well. You can always test this by just tapping on the microphone, and if it's working, your guest should hear that tap. So make sure that you are using the correct audio input device in your virtual event, and make sure that your guests are as well. Other things to think about when it comes to audio: check the levels. Make sure that your guests are loud enough and that you are as well, and adjust those levels if you need to do so. And finally, make sure that your guests have headphones on hand in case there are any problems with echo. If there are echo problems, using headphones will usually take care of that. And so you're going to want to test this out in your tech check before you get to the actual live event. Now, let's talk about video. And again, video quality I don't think is as important as audio quality. It is okay for you and your guests to use your computer's built-in camera, but it's always better to get a higher quality camera if you can. And again, I've included a link to a camera that you might want to consider that's inexpensive, but will just give you a better picture. You might want to consider this for yourself if you're hosting regular events, and you may even want to consider it for your guests. Once again, if you're using an external camera, you're going to want to check both the computer settings and the virtual event platform settings to make sure that it is using the correct camera as the input device. Do this for both yourself and for the guests in the TechCheck. Next up, let's talk about lighting. Lighting is going to be really important to make sure you and your guests look good on screen. The thing that you don't want is to have you or your guests be backlit so that there's a bunch of light behind them and their face is all dark. Make sure that you are not sitting in front of windows at a time when it is sunny outside and that's going to cause deep shadows on your face. That could be a problem. Ideally, you want lighting right in front of you, a selfie ring or some other lighting that works that's going to light up your face. If possible, get that for yourself and get that for your guests. Make sure that when your guests are testing their lighting, that they are sitting in the place that they will actually be sitting during the virtual event, and be very conscious of time. Because if you are doing your tech check during the day, but your actual virtual event occurs at night, it could change the lighting situation. So be aware of that and just make sure that the lighting is working and that both you and your guests are well lit in the video shot. Once you've done all that, you've taken care of all the technical issues, the next step is to make sure that both you and your guests understand the interactive features that are available on your virtual event platform. Show them how the chat feature works if you're going to use Q&A or if you're going to use interactive polls or anything like that. Make sure that they understand how those features work and the appropriate way to respond when people in the audience try to interact through those different tools. If you are going to use a table or a breakout room where people can go talk to your guests after the main presentation, make sure that that is all set up and that your guests understand what they need to do both before the presentation starts and once the presentation is over. Make sure that it's clear what the expectations are. Are they expected to stick around after the main presentation? And if so, what do they do at that time? Once you've gone over the agenda, make sure that you confirm the date and time of the virtual event with your guests. Make sure that you're accounting for time zones. I know I'm terrible at time zone math, so you don't want to have a mistake like that. And once you've done all that, the last thing you need to do is just make sure that you have a backup plan so that you can communicate with each other in case of an emergency. So exchange cell phone numbers or have some other way that you can communicate with each other in case one of you has trouble logging into the platform. And with that, your tech check is done. You're going to be all set for your virtual event. It's not a long process. It shouldn't take you more than 15 or 20 minutes to handle, even if you've got a couple of guests involved. So make sure you do this because it's going to make sure that you have a successful virtual event. I'm Seth Resler from Community Marketing Revolution. And like I said, there is a free virtual event checklist that you can download. You can find that link in the video description. And if you want to learn more about how you can have a great virtual event, check out this video right here. I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks for watching.